Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mukelani Dimba, currently serving as one of the 4 co-chairs of the OGP, and I represent civil society. The panel that I will be moderating today will look at the OGP's response to the need to promote openness, accountability and transparency of Parliament, both in their own operations but as well as in their exercise of oversight over the executive. So to this extent, the OGP introduced a policy that guides the engagement of Parliament within the OGP. But firstly, before I begin this session, I would like to recognize the Chairperson of the Parliament of Georgia, Lord Speaker of the Kingdom of Tonga, members of Parliament present here, members of the Government of Georgia, ambassadors, and all honorable guests. When we look at how parliaments tackle the issue of openness, accountability, and transparency, we shouldn't look any further than the fact that we see examples of parliaments throughout the world adopting initiatives aimed at promoting accountability and transparency. Just to give you one example, in the Latin American region, we've had 39 laws adopted by parliaments on transparency and access to information. Of those laws, 21 were as a result of Parliament's own initiative. Some of these include the enactment of freedom of information laws in places such as Argentina, in Brazil, and Mexico. You also have laws that relate to regulation of conflicts of interest in places like Chile, as well as laws on fiscal transparency that was adopted in Uruguay. We are very proud of the work that parliaments have been doing in this space, and we want to encourage parliaments to do even more. We are fully appreciative of the partnership that we need to have between the executive, civil society, and parliaments in advancing the principles of transparency, openness, and accountability. You will recall from Sanjay's presentation earlier today that 23% of OGP action plans require legislative action. What this simply means is we cannot do OGP on our own as governments or as civil society. We need strong partnerships with you as members of Parliament. So the policy that I referenced earlier has 3 key provisions. Firstly, it says in order to encourage the engagement of parliaments in the OGP framework, we want to encourage the adoption of standalone commitments in national action plans, commitments that relate to parliaments. Where that is not possible, we have recommended that there should be a separate chapter in national action plans that relates specifically to parliaments. However, there is a requirement, third most important thing, that should parliaments pursue their own standalone chapters within the broader national action plan, the process needs to be consistent with the broader rules and procedures that need to be followed by all OGP participating partners. By this, I mean you are required to keep to the same standards of co-creation, to the same standards of consultation, to the same standards of implementing your commitments and reporting on those commitments, and be subject to the independent reporting mechanism. So we've had 18 months to experiment with this idea of bringing parliaments formally within the OGP space. And the panelists you have here today will be sharing with you some of their experiences around implementing the policy in their countries. So without further ado, I think I will start with representative from Canada being Mr. Randy Boissonnault, who is a member of Parliament in the House of Commons of Canada and is the Vice President of Parlamerica's Open Parliament Network of North America. My question for you will be, can you give us a sense of what are the benefits of parliaments engaging with these processes of open governance within the OGP and outside the OGP? Over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Mukirani. Good afternoon, everyone. Gama Joba. How did I do, Irina? Good? Is it okay? Not bad? Okay. We'll work on thank you at the end as well. I'm very happy to be with you here today on behalf of the Parlamerica's Open Parliamentary Network, which has been leading the legislative openness agenda throughout the Americas and the Caribbean. Señora Presidenta del Red de Parlaméricas, gracias de sus palabras anteriormente. Fue excelente. Gracias. Muchísimas gracias. As the Vice President for North America, it is my pleasure to share with you Canada's experience. And what you may not see is in front of us, there's a screen that's being filled in, and it's going to capture in visual images good practices, challenges, and ways forward. So I'm going to shape my remarks into those three themes. So we joined OGP in 2011 under a previous government. I work in Mr. Trudeau's government, and Canada is extremely pleased to become the co-chair of the OGP Steering Committee under the current government, represented by the Honourable Scott Bryson, President of the Treasury Board of Canada, who is here today and sends his regards to each of you. Openness, transparency, and accountability are principles that all Canadians value and that transcend political party lines. And so our government's engagement in multilateral partnerships truly has been cross-partisan, and this is also translated into our efforts to continue to strengthen our Parliament's work. So, for example, in Parlamerica's, when we travel outside of Canada, there are always members of Parliament, members of the Senate, and in both houses, members from all parties. That is how it's a full Team Canada delegation, if you will, when we're traveling outside of Canada, so that we're representing diverse views around the world. So our commitment to improving parliamentary openness and modernizing our practices to meet citizens' demand in the digital age is a true priority for the Parliament of Canada for a number of years. And just in the last 5 years, the chambers have completely redesigned their websites to make information easier to find, to make it more eye-catching, and there's actually a social media presence. So committees have a social media presence. The Parliament has a social media, both the House of Commons and the Senate. But I can be clear, we don't yet have a plan for open Parliament for Canada. So that's a challenge. So let's put that under the challenge basket. The way forward is that we will make a plan. And so I met with the Speaker of the House of Commons and representatives from the Speaker of the Senate before we traveled here, before our House rose for the summer in June. And we made a commitment that we will pull together a special committee of the House and the Senate with representatives from both houses, all parties, and we will co-create the plan with civil society. So that is our commitment to the Open Parliamentary Network. And we also want to make sure that we're supporting and maybe even pushing the Open Government Partnership. And because what's happened right now, Canada has its fourth plan for OGP, and yet the Parliament doesn't have a plan yet. So the government's ahead of the Parliament, and it really should be the other way. And so we have some catch-up to do, and we plan to do that. Now, what have we done well? Well, if we look at parliamentary data sets, people can actually download them now, and they're in an open and reasonable format. The Senate has a communications directorate, which is more youthful, more energetic. They hired a lot of millennials. Let's be serious. And it also established procedures whereby the Senate committees go on fact-finding missions to enable their budget to be approved. And if not, it doesn't get approved, and it has to have a corresponding communications plan. On the financial accountability side, both chambers have dramatically increased the transparency of both member and institutional expenses and have clarified spending priorities. The Parliamentary Budget Office, our independent financial institution, has and continues to create tools to support all parliamentarians in analyzing budget implications of policy decisions, which are also available for public use. And in the same way that Helen Clark referred to the scrutiny of the budget process, that is certainly the case in Canada. It is dissected at a very minute level before it is approved in the House of Commons. So youth engagement has been central to Parliament's efforts. To support that, the House of Commons has published several new resources for both youth and teachers to support individual classroom learning, and additionally, the process for citizens to submit petitions for consideration to Parliament can now be done in electronic format. And actually, I tabled an e-petition in the House earlier this year, and it is very interesting to see what happens with a citizen when a parliamentarian accepts their petition, and particularly an e-petition, and then the social media feedback that happens instantly when you table that petition in the House. In the Senate, a new Ethics and Conflict of Interest Code has been adopted alongside the creation of a Senate Ethics Officer. And these are some of the many measures that have been undertaken, and we're going to continue to work to strengthen our parliamentary process. So while the Parliament has been supportive of the government's engagement in OGP and oversees its commitments that it makes through this platform, as I said earlier, we don't have a plan yet, but now we have a plan to make a plan. And given that we're hosting in May next year, we hope to be able to share our plan then for you. And we'll be sharing more details on our role as hosts as the conference unfolds. So we see an opportunity to join a like-minded international community of politicians, public servants, civil society, and private sector representatives who are dedicated and committed to transforming the way all branches of government work to better serve our citizens and be more responsive to new realities. We see a space where Parliament could show global leadership and where we could share our experiences with others as well as learn from their undertakings. And this would go hand in hand with our efforts toward attaining Sustainable Development Goal 16 to build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions. So we see a mechanism through which members of Parliament and citizens could learn about OGP, and this would help us to continue building support for Canada's engagement in the partnership and to ensure sustainability of these ambitious reforms. When Sanjay said this is about making Parliament more relevant to citizens, I thought that made sense, because when I talk about open data and open source and open government, a lot of citizens' eyes glaze over. So if we can work together to make the work that we're doing tangible and real to people on the ground, I think it will help our movement attract more parliaments and more governments. And so finally, we want to be more inclusive. We have to do better. We have a budget in 2019 that is very focused on engaging women in Canadian society. Something is wrong when you're fielding a team on the ice, in our case of hockey, or on the soccer pitch, and half of your team is left to sit on the bench. We must have women participating as full members of Canadian society, and you will see that in all of the themes of our work domestically and internationally. We must integrate Indigenous people, the LGBTI community, newcomers in the legislative process as well. And so we see this as a process to develop constant dialogue with civil society and to build in those feedback mechanisms. And look, it won't be easy. I can't point to you one example where we've had members of Parliament, senators, engaging in a co-creation exercise with civil society. We brought people to committee. We have people coming into our office as stakeholders. We can have those kind of meetings, but never have we shared that space of creating an action plan for the Parliament of Canada. So, as we say in the West, giddy up, which means let's go. We'll get it done. Thank you all very much for this great opportunity. I'm about 3 months into this new role, so if you will all help me to learn more, I would be grateful, and make sure that I can tell our speakers and Prime Minister Trudeau and Minister Bryson how Parliament can get ahead of government and make sure that we have a Parliament open to all citizens. Thank you. Merci. Hi. Madloba.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Randy. What you said was just music to my ears, because you are reminding us that open governance is not just about openness. It's about enabling government and parliaments not to work for, but to work with the people. And the whole idea of being inclusive is very important, of encouraging participation is quite important in all our work. So, I'll come to Gordana Chomic, who is the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly of the Republic of Serbia. Tell us what you've been doing over the last couple of years in this space. We know that you've been implementing parliamentary engagement on OGP innovations. What challenges have you faced, and where is the debate right now in Serbia on this issue?
Being a politician means that you are a dream builder, but also reality producer. And being a parliamentarian in 21st century means that you have a few very important questions on daily basis if you are with my statement that we politicians should build dreams and produce good reality. And one of those questions are how or when we lost that role, the content of that role, that I am voice of the people. Have I ever been voice of the people? What happened? The context of 21st century is that a lot of politicians in European Union, but also in Caucasus, in my region, in Western Balkans, tend to be populists. And populist says, I am corrupt and I am of no good, and there are populists giving very easy solutions for everybody, and they are like, you know, that strong light that is lit on the political scene and everything else is in dark. You can only see populism that took worst of the movements among people and worst of political parties. And that's the context of me as a parliamentarian in 21st century in Serbia, but all around the globe, I think. And the other part of the context is that globalization gave us a kind of a present, or I don't know, devil's gift, that we are living a huge gap between local political power represented in parliaments and governments and global financial and economical power that is not controlled at all. People in Serbia see me. They don't see global power of economy and finances. They don't see people in small circles having arrangements of what to do with the money, with peace and stability around the world. They see me. I see my government, but neither me or my government, whether I'm opposition or ruling coalition, we can't reach them. And that's why open government partnership is a blessing. The first time I heard that something like that as a global structure will appear, then I realized that there are other people around the globe asking the same questions that I ask myself. Why I am not proper voice for the people, with the people, because of the people. Why I am not seen as someone who is really taking care of the people, because that's politics. That's what politics is all about. And maybe paradoxically, but coming from the country and the epoch of my country, my Serbia, after wars and conflicts and post-conflict society, sometimes it's easier, looks easier to innovate your work as a parliamentarian than in well-established so-called old democracies. And that's something what we have been trying to do. And Serbia joined Open Government Partnership, not just with formal fulfilling conditions that were there to enable all what we know in theory that should be delivered to the people, but also with some innovation that was not part of action plan 1 or 2 or the third one that is nowadays preparing to be put in force in Serbia from 2018 to 2020. We realized that I, as a parliamentarian, should deliver something fresh and new to the people, to try to decrease the level of chaos that appears with populists, with movements that actually erodes the trust as a basic glue in society. You have to have trust in your institutions for society to be able to really fulfill everything necessary for any success in any sector of society. So we said, okay, let's gather of non-conflict issues. And in the Parliament of Serbia, we formed Green Parliamentary Network. All the party, with cross-party cooperation, with help with civic society, with help of OSCE in the Serbia, we said, we will take care that this important thing, environment, should be the baby of all the parties, all the parliamentarians, and in everlasting communications with the people of Serbia. Then we formed the Women Parliamentary Network, and some of my honored colleagues are here with you today. It means that we women will work cross-party on the issues that tackles all the women in Serbia, whoever they may vote for, like family violence, like economic empowerment, like representation in politics. We have our agenda and work together on that agenda to push government and our other colleagues in parliament to deliver something to the women of Serbia. Then we established also a kind of a portal, parliamentary budgetary office, to be allowed to everyone to see how budget is, what's the expenditure, the tempo, the way the money is spent on, not just for parliamentarians to have easy approach, easy access, but everyone. Because that is important. That's their money. And you should talk with them about how that money is or will be spent. More than that, in the cooperation with UNDP, we said, okay, they don't have a really high opinion of us parliamentarians. And let's go to their cities, to their local municipalities, having our committee sessions with whoever wants to be there to have a dialogue with the people from the committee who are specialized in some sector, whatever they may be, agriculture, environment, human rights, whatever the parliament is dealing with. And that session in the local municipalities made possible a little by little, a step by step, but true raise of trust among people. Global open government partnership started with governments, and I do understand why, because governments are the places where money is and power is. I'm for the parliament. I'm those poor ones, for the tabloids, for the shame and blame game. You know, those guys doing nothing but spending people's money in the restaurants, etc. But that is perception that will never, ever stop me to keep on working for what I think is the key essence of democracy. And that's why I think that OGP is actually about democracy and why it will prevail in the time of populism and in the time of shared, easy solution with anti-establishment theory that we actually don't need those parliamentarians and formal institutions, etc., etc. So I think that our next task, and my parliament back home, fulfilling action plan and continuing to work with OGP and hoping to have some innovation with steering committees, having involved parliamentarians in working groups as well, but work closely with organizations connected to OGP. I think that the next task for all of us is to realize that we live in an epoch where in public scene, almighty people around the globe are sending message that everything is allowed. And if everything is allowed, then ethics and rules are endangered. And trust as a global society is broken very easily. So I will work for OGP just like you are my own voters. It means very hard. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Gordana. The one aspect that I would like to emphasize from your input was the whole idea of building coalitions for change, where you, as members of parliament from different parties, come together and form this network for reform. That's one of the important issues around bringing OGP to parliaments, because administrations change. But if you bring OGP to parliaments and you socialize it through parliaments among all the parties, you sustain momentum. Whoever is in power will continue to pursue the agenda of OGP. That's a very good point. Thank you so much. Now we'll come to our hosts for the summit, Georgia. I will invite Irina Priste, who's the Member of Parliament for Georgia and the chairperson of the Permanent Parliamentary Council on Open Governance. She's also the first deputy chairperson of the European Integration Committee. Please share with us your experiences, Georgia, in implementing this OGP Parliament engagement policy.
Thank you, Mukelani. Good afternoon, distinguished guests. Welcome to Georgia. Welcome to the Parliament of Georgia. Our previous speaker, Mrs. Komic, has talked about rising populism. And indeed, nowadays, the world is struggling with the crisis of trust towards the institutions. And people are puzzled. Governments, businesses, media are trying to make sense of it and to rebuild this trust by making necessary reforms. One of the political institutions which is key in rebuilding the trust towards the governments and institutions is the legislative body. We all need the parliaments which are strong and efficient, and at the same time, we need the parliaments, in order to be strong and efficient, they should be open and accountable and inclusive. I'm proud that Georgia is one of the first countries who signed the Parliamentary Openness Declaration in 2015, created the Open Parliament Permanent Council, and started implementing the first action plan. Mr. Bossenot, you mentioned that Canada does not have the Parliamentary Openness Action Plan. Last week, the Parliamentary Bureau has approved third action plan of the Open Parliament of Georgia, so we will be happy to share the experience with you, how to co-create the action plans in the Parliament. So the action plans are in the Parliament of Georgia are created by the Permanent Council, civil society and parliamentary staff together. And this is the good example which has been awarded by the OGP Champions Award in 2015. So what are we bragging about? This is the cooperation between the civil society, parliament and the parliamentary staff that produced 3 action plans and good achievements. 83% of the second action plan, in number it sounds even better, 20 out of 24 commitments were implemented during last 2 years. And we are working still to finalize those 4 difficult commitments that have not been fulfilled yet. But meanwhile, we developed the third action plan together with the civil society and even more with the involvement of the wider public. So what are the factors of good cooperation? I would call it AWC. A is for the common aims, W is for the goodwill, and C is for the communication. You may have common aims and goodwill to struggle to achieve those aims together, but no good habits of communication. Or, on the other hand, you may have very good habits of communication, but no aims to reach together, or no will to work together to reach those aims. So all three are necessary for good cooperation, and Georgian case, which is successful case, is successful exactly because we have all three in place. We have common aims, we realize that these aims are common, we have very good communication, and we have goodwill to reach those aims together. What are the benefits of co-creation? It's more ideas, more diversity, assessment that is more critical, more achievements, and more satisfaction by these achievements. So our speaker has already talked about the changes we have made in the Parliament in the framework of the 2 action plans of Open Parliament. I will not talk too much about it, but I will mention some of them. We created the list of proactive information which should be published on the parliamentary website. It's a lot of information. It's MPs' work, it's committee action plans, parliamentary activities, financial information about travels of MPs, etc. We also worked to create the mechanism of submitting petitions and legislative initiatives electronically in Parliament. We also improved the rules of public consultations, and during the first action plan, the instrument of making comments on the legislative initiatives and the draft legislation on every stage, on the first, second, and third stage, was created, but it was obvious that this mechanism was not enough for public to be motivated to make comments. So during the second action plan, we made it obligatory for the committees to discuss the comments and to make feedback on the comments. We also made obligatory for the committees by the rules of procedure to create and publish the committee action plans every year. And this will make the committee work more open and engaging, and it will make for civil society easier to be involved in the committee works. And besides that, it is also obligatory now to publish Parliament's annual reports regularly. We also took the commitment to develop the oversight over the OGP action plan implementation by the government. I think we are one of the, maybe even the unique in the world, Parliament who started the oversight over the OGP action plan implementation. And we also developed the self-assessment instrument in the Parliament. We already did general self-assessment, gender self-assessment, and SDG self-assessment last month. We are waiting for the reports, and we will build our strategies and action plans based on those self-assessment. I will not talk about code of conduct. My colleague Tamuna Chugoshvili will have an opportunity to share the work done on this issue with you later on the second panel. And we also developed different instruments like the new website, which we are still working on, but the concept is already created. The mobile application of Parliament, where every citizen can download and follow the parliamentary work and agenda, and also the public information module, which will make it easy for citizens to access the public information from the Parliament. When we worked on the third action plan, we decided to make the process even more inclusive, because at the moment we have 15 civil society organizations involved in the work of the Permanent Parliamentary Council on Open Governance, and we decided this is not enough because these organizations are those who are based in Tbilisi, the biggest, most successful organizations. We wanted to give chance to those who are in regions, smaller civil society organizations, local governments, just citizens, to be involved in creating the Open Parliament action plans and to tell them about all the work which is done in Parliament to create the opportunities for the citizens' engagement. And we made the public consultations in the process of elaborating the third action plan. 7 meetings were held in Tbilisi and in 6 other cities, in 6 regions of Georgia, with the local communities, with the private sector, with media and civil society. We also announced the competition, student competition, Your Idea for Open Parliament, and 7 ideas for the commitments were submitted as a result of that competition. And 3 best ideas were selected. 3 students were invited to the meeting of the council and to present their ideas, and those ideas were taken and incorporated in the new action plan by the council. Besides that, 17 ideas were submitted also by the general public for the action plan. What are the main commitments of the third action plan? We have 5 made big and very ambitious commitments. In previous action plan we had 24, now we have 5, but bigger than those 24. This is about promotion and monitoring the sustainable development goals by the Parliament of Georgia. It's increasing citizens' involvement in the elaboration and approval of the budget, creation of the Citizens' Engagement Center in the Parliament, and raising the public awareness about parliamentary democracy. It was decided to incorporate the parliamentary action plan in the government's national action plan. For this, we made it sure that the period of the Parliament's action plan is the same as of the government's action plan. And this was decided in order to bring the parliamentary action under the independent review mechanism. And it's very easy. It will those 2 action plans will be technically merged. We will work separately to implement the action plans, but the review will be done together. And I see that I don't have time to talk about challenges. Of course, we still have challenges, but maybe during the discussions I will talk about it. So we need to join forces to rebuild the trust among the public towards our institutions, and only by making our institution open, transparent, and accountable, we will manage to build this trust. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Printe. Because you are our perfect host, I gave you 5 more minutes. But I do want to emphasize and also encourage other parliaments to carry on board this idea you have of exercising oversight on the implementation of the National Action Plan itself. Because one of the problems that we have within OGP is low completion of commitments that have been made. So we need parliaments again to weigh in and ensure that the commitments are implemented. Thank you so much for that. The next speaker is Maria Baron, who will give us input from the experience of Latin American countries, both at country level as well as at regional level. She's the executive director of Directivo Legislativo and also a member of the OGP steering committee. Maria.
Thank you, Mukelani, and I'm really honored to share the panel with such distinguished MPs, and of course with you, my colleague from the steering committee. So just, I'm gonna talk about 2 specific things. One are the good things that are happening in Latin America, and after that, sort of the challenges that we have related to those good things that are happening that are interesting. So you know that in the Spanish-speaking Latin America, so except for Canada and the US and the Caribbean, OGP is present in almost every country. So OGP has really grown and is really well received in most of the countries in Latin America. That doesn't mean that all of the countries are really advancing in OGP's values and commitments, but still it's really an important initiative. Having said that, the parliamentary initiative is it's growing, it's starting. And so I want to sort of take a couple of minutes to talk about some of the countries that are really advancing in that path. One of them is Chile. We have a strong delegation here, as always, and not only of MPs, but also administrative staff from the parliament too. So in Chile, they are working in the third action plan. And so there's very little countries, or there's very few countries in the world that are already advancing in the third cycle of action plans. So it's really promising for Chile and I think for the region too. There's also the example of Paraguay. We have a delegation of Paraguay too, also an MP and also an administrative person, which is really important. I make this point because it's really important that the bureaucracy of the parliaments are really involved in this initiative as well. Because parliamentarians sometimes come and go, and the bureaucracy most of the time stays. And so that makes the expectation of those plans to be more profound and to be sort of more medium or long term. And so Paraguay, I was saying, is in the second action plan, which is really interesting for the region too. It was an unexpected strong initiative that they put together, and it's really, I think, really well received in the region too. The third country that I want to mention is Colombia. Colombia has a really interesting sort of way of working around sort of the formalities of OGP, in the sense that they're not so much co-creating, but it's one of those rare cases where the government and the Congress, in this case the MPs, get together and really say, this is what we're going to advance and this is how we're going to transform in terms of transparency. So with not that much presence of civil society, the Colombians have really, really transformed their Congress in many senses, in terms of regulation and in terms of internal rules. Also, it's the example of Costa Rica, who put together a plan, and we're really waiting for the implementation phase, which took longer than we expected to be able to sort of roll their own sleeves and start working in that direction. What they had already last year, I think it was last year, that they had planned, but they haven't started the implementation phase. So those are sort of the good things. Then there are other initiatives as well that haven't gravitated that much yet in other countries like Peru, Argentina, yeah. And so just to go into the other phase regarding the challenges. I think there are many. And to go back to the examples that I was putting forward, there were a lot of challenges there too. In the case of Chile, now that we have the delegation here too, the previous two action plans weren't with the participation of the civil society organizations as much, or the participation, let's say, wasn't as formal as OGP sort of asks for. In the case of Colombia, I already said that was the case too. But also I think maybe the idea of putting this policy of parliaments together in the past. It was approved 2 years ago, and it's going to, in September or October, it's going to be the second year that we put together. It was a pilot plan. I think we can learn from these past 2 years from that policy. In the case of Latin America, I think we need a little bit more of formality, in the sense that some of the countries are putting together these plans, not following exactly what OGP asks for in terms of co-creation. Also, we need a little bit of more formality in terms of how we're going to measure what these plans are putting together and what these commitments are saying. I think it's really important that the countries have that data or that pieces of information so that they can recalibrate what they're doing into the future. And I think that can be done. I think those are challenges for OGP. So it's a challenge for myself and for Mukalani too. I think there are other challenges as well in terms of for the congresses. I think many of the congresses are putting sort of groups to work on action plans just to do the case that they're doing it, but they're not sort of thinking on really transforming. This is not an idea of putting plans together, but it's how to use those plans to transform, to really change how the congresses work or the parliaments, and what they produce to change the people's lives in their own countries. So I think that's really a strong challenge that the parliaments have, and a challenge that I think that is also shared with civil society organizations, in the sense that we need to, as organizations, push forward or push the parliaments forward. And also, I think we're seeing in some of the countries, organizations, in some cases, need to sort of know with more depth what the parliaments are for, what the parliamentarians do, what they stand for. And I think that's a challenge for many organizations, because it's not that from one day to another you just advocate for open parliament. You need to know what parliaments are doing, what they have done, what are the really sort of challenging ideas that can transform. So I think those are some of the challenges. And picking from our colleague from Canada, I'm just taking note of the commitment that you made here on the stage, and good. And so I'm looking forward to having strong and long and really fruitful conversations with you, so that Canada can show the other countries of the region a good path in this direction of transparency and ultimately to transform ourselves.
Thank you, Maria. We'll move straight to Philemon Kiblagat Sabule, who is the county speaker for Elgeyo Marakwet County Assembly in Kenya. What we would like to get a sense from you is, how is this working at local government level? How have you engaged citizens within the lawmaking processes at local government levels? And how do you see this policy, this OGP policy being implemented by yourselves at that level of government? Over to you.
So, thank you so much, Mr. Mukelane Dimba. I'm happy to have this opportunity to share our experiences from Kenya, and in particular the local governments. Allow me to recognize all of you parliamentarians, led by His Excellency, the President of the Parliament of Georgia, all the distinguished guests. All of us appreciate the role that the Parliament plays in terms of supporting the open governance. And I'm happy today, as a young and new parliamentarian, to learn from all of you, and also be able to share our experiences from the local governments, which are the counties in Kenya. The legal structure in Kenya is such that the devolution has created two arms of government, where we have the national government and the county governments. The 47 county governments each has the county assembly which is a parliament that makes laws, does the responsibility of oversight, approve the budget, and ensure that the constitution is complied by the executive or the county government. So in terms of Parliament playing its critical role to advance the issues of open governance, we have also made our baby steps towards meeting the commitments under the open governance, and in particular the policy that guides all of us as member states in the Parliament. And I'm happy to report that though the county assemblies in Kenya are only 7 years old, because the constitution came into effect in 2010, and the new government came into place in 2012. But we have made, good program and steps and initiatives to ensure that we learn from the best practices across the world, which I want to share briefly. The county assemblies are required by the Constitution to ensure that they advance the diversity. By this, I mean that all the special interest groups in that county or that region or that local regions are represented in the local government, that is the assembly. Women are given equal opportunity with men, and when election does not bring forth a sufficient number of women to the parliament, each political party is mandated, depending on their proportion of members in the parliament, to nominate women to the parliament to ensure that not more than 2/3 of the members of that parliament are from one gender. And that brings the issue of inclusivity in terms of gender and other small interest groups like minority and marginalized. And by doing this, we ensure that each and every person in the county is represented and their interests are taken into consideration. We also follow the issue of self-governance very critically by ensuring that devolution goes to the lowest level of villages. And this is done through public participation. Whenever we do legislation, whenever we are doing oversight or approving the budgets, we ensure that we do caucus meetings, even at the very smallest segments of our village. And this is guided by a law. We have a law called Public Participation Act that designs critically how a law or any program of the government is passed through the people for their co-creation, for their feedback, and for their contributions as well. We also appreciate that as a parliament, we have the responsibility of ensuring that there is equitable distribution of resources across the county. And by this, we play that critical role during the budget process by ensuring that each and every region gets a pie from the resources that come to the county. How do we do this? We have done this through legislation by enacting a law we have called Equitable Development Act that ensures that each ward, which are the units that makes up the county, gets 40% of the amount that is going to be distributed across the project in that county. And those projects are initiated by the locals themselves. Us as a government and the parliament only plays a role to sensitize the community, bring them together, and ensure that there is meaningful involvement of all of them in terms of the budget process and distribution of resources. I also want to just say something about the transparency, accountability, and accessibility, which all of them are the key principles of open governance. And I would wish to say that in my county and at the assembly, we have tried as much as possible, though we are still young, to match with the best practices that is happening across the rest of the parliament in the world. By this, we ensure that our activities are open to the rest of the citizens. Whenever they want any information, they can always come to the parliament and they will get it. Our website is active 24/7. This ensures that whenever we do anything in the assembly, we post in the website and people are able to do it interactively. That also means that our answered reports are open for everyone, and each and every member of the public has access to the assembly. And I think these are the true ideals of the open governance that we need to learn from best practices as we move forward as the assemblies and the parliament. I know there's not much time for me, but I appreciate for this short opportunity. Thank you so much, Deva. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Philip. There will be enough time for further discussions after this session. What I would like to do now, ladies and gentlemen, is to invite Madam Boufhashen, who is the Deputy Speaker of the Vice Speaker of the Assembly in Morocco. Please, the floor is yours. What I would like to know from you is, so Morocco is one of the recent entrants to the OGP, but what I'd like to get a sense of is what are the challenges you have encountered in getting started with this work of incorporating parliaments in the OGP process, very new OGP process in Morocco.
Yes, thank you. Excuse me, I have facility to express in French, so my speech will be in French. Thank you. Merci, Monsieur le Président. Merci, chers collègues parlementaires. Je voudrais remercier Monsieur le Président pour cette question, justement, parce que effectivement, on a eu l'opportunité d'être invité par le Parlement georgien, qui est en même temps le co-président du Conseil permanent parlementaire, et justement dans le but de nous accompagner pour ce pas si démocratique, si audacieux. On a été reçu une grosse délégation pendant 3 jours et on a eu l'opportunité de voir de près comment l'expérience georgienne a été entamée. Nous avons rencontré des commissions parlementaires, la société civile, les jeunes. Nous avons effectivement compris comment élaborer un plan d'action. Et c'est pour cela que ça coïncide avec le nouveau souffle marocain à travers l'adoption d'une nouvelle constitution en 2011 et qui a justement, il épouse les principes et les valeurs du partenariat pour le gouvernement ouvert. Il s'agit qu'il s'agisse du droit à l'accès à l'information, de la démocratie participative et citoyenne, de la reddition des comptes, de la transparence et l'implication de la société civile et dans la politique publique. Mon pays a su comment les ancrer dans son système institutionnel, puisqu'ils sont de reste consacrés par la Constitution, mentionnés dans les règlements intérieurs des 2 chambres parlementaires marocains, adopté par la législation nationale à travers essentiellement l'adoption du projet de loi 3113 relative au droit à l'accès à l'information, les rendant ainsi les droits inversibles. Et justement, c'est cette loi, l'adoption du Parlement de cette loi, alors que je suis dans l'opposition. Et donc, nous avons adopté cette loi justement pour permettre à notre gouvernement marocain de pouvoir entrer dans ce club de démocratie. Et justement, en avril, il a été plus ou moins, je crois, adopté. Et c'est pour cela, et grâce à l'accompagnement du Parlement georgien et de notre partenaire institutionnel Westminster, nous avons pu justement élaborer un projet consistant que nous avons ramené avec nous pour démontrer justement cette volonté de rentrer dans le club des parlements ouverts. Nous avons justement décliné et visé des objectifs déclinés en 27 engagements. Donc je vais vous lire rapidement les 8 objectifs. 1. Mise en œuvre des dispositions constitutionnelles législatives en matière de démocratie participative et citoyenne. Aujourd'hui, 2 lois organiques relatives respectivement aux modalités d'exercice du droit de présenter des pétitions au pouvoir public et aux conditions d'exercice du droit de présenter des motions en matière législative sont en vigueur depuis 2016, conformément au règlement intérieur de la Chambre des représentants. 2. L'implication des citoyens dans le processus législatif, concrètement la mise en ligne des projets et des propositions de loi soumis à la procédure législative pour consultation citoyenne. 3. Mise en œuvre des dispositions constitutionnelles et législatives en matière de droit à l'accès à l'information. Effectivement, au-delà d'1,6 million documents sont numérisés. Ils seront mis en ligne incessamment. L'ouverture 4. L'ouverture de l'institution sur le grand public, notamment les jeunes, pour mieux faire connaître l'action parlementaire à travers une politique de proximité et d'interaction via les réseaux sociaux. Transparence en matière de gestion financière et comptable de la Chambre des représentants. Veiller à la transparence des marchés publics lancés par l'administration parlementaire. 6. Consultation et implication des citoyens dans les processus des évaluations des politiques publiques qui servent de thermomètre à leur impact sur leur vie quotidienne. 7. Développement d'un partenariat avec la société civile et les milieux universitaires via l'organisation d'un débat annuel avec les ONG et les milieux universitaires sur les thématiques axées sur le civisme, l'éducation, le droit de l'homme, etc. 8. Et pour finir, prévoir les actions transversales visant la capitalisation sur la réalisation en matière de e-Parliament, favoriser le développement d'une plateforme numérique d'échange. Honorable assistance, ainsi sont les engagements constituant le plan d'action entrepris par le Parlement marocain, rejoignant et les efforts considérables du gouvernement marocain et favorisant éventuellement l'adhésion officielle de mon institution au club de représentation démocratique et ouverte. Merci beaucoup de m'écouter. Et je voudrais vous signaler comme quoi, justement, cette tablette-là, elle nous a été offerte par, justement, le Parlement marocain et c'est pour faciliter la communication et au sein du Parlement et à distance. Actuellement, je suis avec vous, mais je suis de près ce qui se passe chez moi au Parlement. Merci beaucoup.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very aware that we're not doing very well in terms of time, but please allow me an opportunity to say thank you to my very amazing panel. Thank you so much for your input. A round of applause, please. Just to conclude, I just want to reiterate that as the OGP, we are very committed to engagements of parliaments within OGP. Sorry.
Thank you.
Within OGP, and we are willing, as always, to work with all of you, particularly working with the Open Network, which we see as a very important resource for providing technical support to us as OGP, but also to you as parliaments. We are looking forward to a very strong relationship between our institutions. And just to say again that as OGP, we adopt a whole of government approach, a total government approach. So we don't want to work alone with the executive and work alone with you. We want to have this three-way relationship between the OGP, parliaments and governments working together to advance the principles of transparency and accountability. Thank you so much. The next session will be a lightning session on leveraging technologies to promote legislative engagement.
Distinguished guests, let me start the lightning talks session. I will try to be very brief and speak about those achievements that we have in implementing technologies and innovations for parliamentary democracy in Georgia. Technologies and innovations, what comes to our mind when we hear these words? For most people, these are everyday objects like mobile phones, computer devices, social networks, or shortly speaking, objects that make our lives much easier and keep us entertained. These are the instruments that provide us with a number of opportunities to engage with each other, to conduct everyday activities, stay well informed, stay connected with each other even if we live in different parts of the world. Now you may ask, what does all this mean for ensuring parliamentary democracy? And the answer for this question is really very simple. Each and every form of technologies and innovations can be adjusted to the needs of modern parliaments. Even more, right use of these technologies can change the stereotypes that law-making process is not interesting or inclusive for the ordinary citizens. Just as you update your mobile phone or applications on your mobile phone, parliaments, as the oldest forms of democracy, also should be updated and renewed in terms of modern society and needs of modern society. And when we speak about our experience in this co-creation process, we always, my organization and me, myself, was always questioning this process and the MPs from Georgia. If we can download music, for instance, why it's not possible to download parliamentary information in open data formats? If we can turn on alerts on breaking news, why it's not possible to add this function to the law-making process and for draft laws so that people can track how this process is going on? If we can leave our comments on Facebook posts or use our Twitter accounts to engage with each other and discuss different topics about policy issues, why it's not possible to add discussion forums on parliamentary websites? And we think that right use of right technologies can improve the quality of democracy and turn parliaments into citizen-oriented, open, more accountable, more responsive, and modern institutions. When talking about Georgian experience, I want to mention that great amount of work, joint work that have been done together with Parliament, civil society, and international organizations to ensure that these new technological approaches will be benefit for all. As a result, in the framework of the project Strengthening Parliamentary Democracy in Georgia, which is funded by European Union and implemented by United Nations Development Program in cooperation with my organization, IDFI, the Georgian Parliament Open Data Portal and first application, mobile application, GeoParliament, was created. For many years, this information that is uploaded on the website of the Parliament was in PDF formats mostly, and it was not like machine readable and user-friendly. The formats like HTML, CSV, and others was not used for parliamentary information. Additionally, in order to request public information from the Georgian parliament, citizens have to send written requests. And both these challenges were answered by open data portals that we created. And now all this information that Parliament have is in accessible, machine-readable, and user-friendly system. Also, citizens can now request this information, different kind of information from the Parliament by e-request systems that we incorporated in this module. And of course, there is a lot of massive data sets that are available for all public. These are legal acts, it's procurement data, it's different kind of information about salaries and bonuses of high public officials of Georgian parliament. And all this data is available for public use through these new systems that we created together with Parliament of Georgia. As for mobile application, it has different features and different systems inside, but I will underline just several of them. First, for me, it's very interesting thing. It's agenda of the Bureau of the Parliament. And this section includes each and every agenda that is discussed on Parliamentary Bureau hearings. But prior to introduction of this feature, this information and this documentation was only available for the members of the Bureau of the Parliament. And right now it's available for everybody, and everybody can use it for their own purposes and for litigation, for advocacy, or for media. It's also very important. I think that this kind of attitude from the Parliament, that it makes this data open, is important step towards the openness and transparency of decision-making process. Yet another very important feature of this application is leave your comment section that enables citizens of Georgia to leave their comments, ideas, and or criticism towards any part of draft legislation that is reviewed in the Parliament of Georgia. By adding this feature, Parliament of Georgia confirmed its readiness to listen to the people or different organizations, civil society, or other stakeholders in the process of lawmaking. It's very important, and Parliament made even more. Parliament of Georgia amended its rules and procedures, and now parliamentary committees are obliged to review these comments and find out how they can be incorporated in draft laws. And finally, the application also includes internal calendar of the Parliament. And for me, it's really a star feature of this application, because what is this calendar? This is the calendar of internal use, where the MPs and staff of the committees are marking events, meetings, and all this data is of internal use. But also this data is for public, and public now can just access these meetings, find out what is going on in Parliament, and most important, this information is very valuable for the media, of course. Finally, I would like to mention that as time goes by, more and more opportunities arise, and we have to keep up with these latest trends and use these trends to our action plans. That's why the new action plan that was created and adopted just several days ago, together with Parliament and civil society organizations, I think it will be a step forward for the new innovations and technologies for improvement of Georgian open government partnership standards. I would like to say that participation of Georgia in open government partnership is very important for the citizens of Georgia, for civil society, because we can advocate and push further reforms in different branches of government. But the parliament is, I think, most successful in this regard. And I want to thank our MPs, staff of the parliament, for this beautiful co-creation process that is undergoing for several years already. I think that Georgian experience and Georgian practice could be a good example for those countries that want to join open government partnership legislative track. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for inviting me to be here. Really excited. I'm going to show you something a little bit similar to what Levan just showed you, but this is slightly different, and it's all open source. I'm Rebecca Rumble. I'm head of research for My Society, which is a civic tech organization. So I know most of you will probably be up on civic tech, being such huge OGP enthusiasts, but just if you're not, we make, we popularize digital tools that enable citizens to exert power over institutions in some way. It's technology that enables people to get something done, to make sure that they can hold their governments to account and make sure that they can receive the services and benefits that they are due by the state. So we are operating open source software all over the world. We've got code running right now in about 40 or 50 different countries at any one time. And as I said, our code is open source, so it costs nothing. Anyone, anywhere in the world can pick it up and use it. And as you can see, we are kind of spread all over the globe, which is really exciting. Just today, I wanted to talk a little bit about They Work For You. This is our flagship parliamentary monitoring website in the UK. And we built this because the Parliament website in the UK is terrible. It's great if you're an MP and you know everything there is to know about Parliament. You can go on Parliament's website in the UK and pick up exactly what you need. Oh, of course, it's going to be in that silo. I'll just click that and drop down. Truth is, normal people have no idea how Parliament works, how parliamentary silos are structured on the website. So if you don't even know who your MP is, going onto the website is not going to be much help because you can't just type in their name. You don't know who they are. So this enables you to start from a level of no knowledge whatsoever. So you might not know your MP, but you probably know where you live. So you can type your postcode in there and it'll tell you who your MP is. From that point, then you can start to get more informed because we believe that more informed citizens are better at holding their parliaments to account. So once you've found out your MP, you can then find out what they're saying. We do produce something called Hansard in the UK, which is a record of everything that's said in Parliament. But again, it used to be terrible. It used to just be a PDF. You had to know exactly what you were looking for, and you had to trawl through it, and it was incredibly tedious. So we designed the software so that you could actually just search for the people that you want to see. You can search for debates, and it's very, very shareable. So you can just kind of tweet this out, if you want to make some sort of comment or share some sort of opinion about what your MPs or indeed any other MPs have been saying. You can quickly just bosh this on Twitter with whatever opinion you like and watch it get shared around the world. One of the really important things that we do on this site is to illustrate how MPs have voted generally on individual subjects. Because it's really, really hard, if you've got an MP and you'd like to know how they think about things, you don't want to trawl back through years and years of votes. Again, that's really boring, it takes a lot of time. Normal people don't have that kind of staying power. It's much, much easier for us to aggregate it for you so that you can see really quickly at a glance roughly where your MP or any other MP stands on certain issues. So this guy voted very strongly against greater regulation of gambling. Maybe he really likes gambling. Mixture for and against measures to prevent climate change. So, okay, that might be somewhere where, if that's important to you, you might be able to sway him on the issue. Either way, this just offers people a really, really quick understanding of whereabouts people stand on issues, and enables them, again, to maybe understand what angle to come from if they actually want to engage. It also provides a completely searchable record of Parliament. So if there's something you're particularly interested in, you can just search for it. You can also have this send you updates. So you don't have to come on the site every day and type in kittens if that's what you're really interested in. I mean, that's just a cute example, but it works for anything. We've got a lot of people at the moment that have a daily email update about Brexit. Lots and lots of people have just sort of signed up and said, right, okay, anytime someone says Brexit, I want to know what they're talking about. And you can see, again, who discusses these things the most. So I'm not just interested in kittens, I want to know which people are actually interested in kittens as well. And the great thing about this is, again, like I say, it's open source. We have these sites running in several different countries in the world. We're really pleased that a couple of our most successful parliamentary monitoring sites are actually in Africa. This is the one in Kenya, which is going great guns for several years, and it goes from strength to strength. And People's Assembly in South Africa provides a similar service, and again, really, really wonderfully well used, and enabling people that don't have that kind of, geeky level of politics that most of us in here have. They can just go on it and use it really easily. And the really amazing thing is that people do actually like these sites, and they think they make a difference. So you're not just throwing something out there, saying, oh, well, it's good for people to have information. People actually, believe that these kinds of things work, that being able to see this information makes them a more effective citizen. We did a huge survey of a lot of our different sites, asking people, how they felt about using it, whether they thought being able to see this information helped them hold governments to account. And a lot of people say yes, in full, but even just in part, there's only a small sliver across these countries where these sites are in operation, where people have said no, not at all. At least in part, people feel like these sites are helping them. Having this information is really, really helping them and helping their governments. So I think, that's something positive to take away from this. Having a good parliamentary website or having a good parliamentary monitoring website that's operated outside of Parliament is actually quite important to people. And once people feel like they're able to make a difference, like being able to see this information is making a difference, that leads on to far more engaged populace. That leads on to far more engaged citizens who believe that, okay, I can see this information, therefore I can go forward and make a difference. I can start talking about things that are really useful for me. So I'm a fan of parliamentary monitoring organisations. They're not even all ours, but anything I think that puts information in the hands of citizens who do want to be involved and appraised of what's going on in Parliament, I think is a really good thing. So that's just a quick tour of one of our open source softwares, and I hope you think it was interesting. Thank you.
Audio Jungle. Audio
afternoon. I don't know if you can hear me. There we go. Kind of a loud voice, too. So I want to kick off this conversation with just some numbers. 51%, 62%, 1.5 billion, 1.94 billion, and 100 million. Thinking about these numbers, what does that even mean? What is that relevant to parliaments? Well, let me break it down. 51% of the world's population has internet access, which means half of the world's population does not. 62% of the world's population is using mobile phones. 2 million monthly active users on Facebook, 100 million approximately daily users on Twitter, and 1.5 billion active users on WhatsApp. Why am I mentioning this, and why is this important in regards to conversations of utilizing tech with parliaments? Is because parliaments are focused on the citizens. And in order to integrate technology within parliaments, it's imperative that they understand what their citizens are using in order to ensure that that end user is actually going to be using the information that is being provided. So I wanted to talk just a little bit about three key things in regards to basically core components of innovative legislatures. And really looking at one, modern research and archival capabilities, two, real-time citizen engagement, and the third, learning about tech-savvy solutions as well. And really bringing it back to the foundation of a legislature and ensuring, again, kind of reiterating that fact of the legislature ensuring that they're focused on their citizens as well. So in regards to research and archival really focus, as all of you know, a sound research practice and a comprehensive archival process is a backbone to an informed and transparent legislature. And where does tech come into play? Well, with IRI, we are working with parliaments in over 20 countries. And really, it's very important when parliaments are integrating technology to ensure that it is useful for that parliament. So I want to talk a little bit about our experience working in Mali. We partnered with the National Assembly in Mali, recognizing that they did not have a reliable storage system for data, legislative information. And recognizing that it was mainly in paper format, we were able to partner with them to really update this system. Previously, it was difficult for legislative staff, research staff to obtain information. So along with a tech firm, IRI partnered with the National Assembly, and we helped set up an internet-free, actually, digital archive system. And that system and installing it ensured that those computers that were used in the National Assembly all had this access to this server as well. But we didn't stop there. We also ensured that the staff members within the National Assembly were really well trained in utilizing the system. And to date, there's been 1.2 gigabytes of information that has been uploaded. Now that's, for some, maybe your parliaments have already done the digitization of documents. But it's an important key fact to think about of if your documents are not digitized, how is the public going to be able to access that information? And so these are some of the key examples that we have been able to work with at IRI with various other parliaments globally to really update some of the key systems and really taking that to the next level of now how is the public going to access that key information? Innovation in technology doesn't need to be flashy. I think the innovation is really focused on that user and making sure you get that user right. And with parliaments, the user is that citizen. So really kind of following along to that, and this, again, is nothing new, but it is something that needs to be continuously reiterated, I believe, based on my experience in working with members of parliament as well. And it's really that engagement with citizens and leveraging the social media, Twitter, Facebook, WhatsApp. Going back to those numbers, we've done trainings with members of parliament across the globe, in-depth communication trainings, in-depth use of social media platforms. But the key piece to that is for them to understand what their constituencies are actually using. So being able to use Facebook Live for town hall meetings, to WhatsApp to inform information to their constituencies. Even members of parliament have now that we've been working with are publishing now their schedule online, which wasn't what they were doing before, but now they're pushing that out via Facebook, recognizing that their citizens want to access that information. So the tech solution actually can be rather simple, and sometimes we can overcomplicate it. And it's things of these kind of making sure that you're really maximizing the tools in the toolkit that are at times not as expensive. The other thing I would highlight in regards to that citizen engagement is parliaments that have radio and access, and where citizens are accessing information, strengthening those radio channels as well. Again, that's another type of tech that we don't talk often enough either, and that in many countries, that is a way that citizens are also accessing that information. And so really continuing to customize that approach based on your parliament. And third is really those key lessons learned about the tech-savvy solutions. What I mean by that is getting outside of your legislature, getting outside of your parliament, and learning what's going on globally. So we've been able to partner with the e-Governance Academy in Estonia, which I know all of you probably are well informed of the amazing e-governance work in Estonia. And through that work, bringing 50 members of parliament from 8 different countries to Estonia for basically a study tour. Really learning and building these relationships with other countries, other members of parliament, goes a long way, just like this conversation is today. And then from there, them being able to take that back, see what makes sense for their parliaments, and then with IRI, we try to partner with them to help fill some of those key gaps. So really getting outside of the parliament, learning and sharing key experiences is also a key focus. So I'll just quickly end with the numbers that I started with a focus of those numbers represent your citizens, and ensuring that you're meeting your citizens where they're at with tech is, in the end, my advice. Thank you.
Audio Jungle.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Krzysztof Zdebski from Państwo Foundation and Transparency Network. And I'm very sorry, I'm just last before the lunch. Actually, I'm hungry myself, so I'll do it very brief. So the topic is, why do we need a parliamentary monitoring website in 2018? I mean, we've seen a lot of examples, perfect examples before from my colleagues. But we want to show also the reason why we're doing it, not only for citizens, but for you, for politicians, basically. I mean, this is something that we often forget as the civic tech organizations, that actually this is not only for engaging politicians with citizens, but also to improving your daily life as an MP. So, since 2009, we're having the Sejmometer. The Sejm is the Polish name for a parliament, so it's like Parlameter. And this is the parliamentary monitoring website from Poland. And this is a very good occasion because actually we did that in 2009. In 2009, we did, so 10 years ago, we did a first website of the parliamentary monitoring. As you can see, this is the official website of the parliament. I mean, you can't really see it good, but it has like 19th century fonts even. So it was really hard, even for politicians, to understand what's going on. Of course, you get like tons of papers, but like it's not really easy to find what it's inside the proposal, the remarks, the comments from your fellow MPs. So we tried to put it in more order. So you can see the timetable there, and actually they improved a lot. The official website improved a lot. You have a timetable. This is an example of a legislative process. The time frame of that, you can click, and the pleasure is all ours because we also feel that it's a role of civic society to show good examples, and we are happy when government or parliament are implementing that. So it looks quite good now. So why the hell we're building a parliamentary monitoring website in 2018? Oh, there's a reason. There's a very good reason, because there's still, you can still add value to the data, and it's all the details. So now the thing is how we can utilize the data, use the data from the parliamentary website and from other data actually that we can connect with. So this is one of the examples what you can do. You can see very quickly that like very controversial law, it's like it can't be proceeded through the parliament in 24 hours. But there are some important pieces of legislation waiting for more than a year. This is the same you can with, for example, the request for the public hearings. You can see how many of them were rejected in, let's say, recent month. We all like rebels, so it's easy with that tool to see who is voting against his club. Apparently, this is our Minister of Justice, and he is the most rebellious in terms of being loyal to his party, Law and Justice. But this is not only a nice trick, a good data, but it's also for me. I'm not a tech guy, I'm a policy guy, I'm a lawyer. For me to identify the MP who might be opposing his club. So this might be the person that I would approach with some issues. I would like him to support me against his party. What is excellent, actually, that we also connect the database with the business registry, and we can see the connections between MP and other people that we put some dots with. So what is their actually business activities of MPs, but also the business activities of their family or their companions, and which is an easy stuff for us when we want to see what's going on in the parliament, who is talking. You can just browse the feeds. It's like a Twitter. You can use it on the phone. And it's actually, this is something that we work with MPs on that, because what they said, and maybe you may agree or not, is that actually they really like to find the old quotations or old phrases from their opponents, so they can say like, oh, but a year ago you were saying this and this. So with the tool you can refer to that. So this is the beta version. Now you can see on the website, and official launch September the 1st. Thank you very much. I'm here. If you have a lot of questions, I hope we'll be here throughout the day. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, from now until 3:30 p.m. we have a lunch break. Please proceed to the lunch area, Shota Rustaveli Hall on the ground floor. Next panel will start at 3:30 p.m.